All right. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My middle school people, welcome to Middle School Mondays. You're joining Colorado middle level educators from across the state and beyond. And today you are in for 30 minutes of laughter, hacks, and some learning that's going to come from our guests today. We're going to get started with a couple of things. Megan, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
So yeah, hi, I'm Megan Fruvelhoff. I am the Fru in the Fru and Frank. So I am a mental health interventionist here at Longs Peak Middle School in Longmont. I've been working in education for 13 years now. I love what I get to do. I get to today's highlight was helping people through conflict and not yelling and just talking really respectfully. So that was my gig. Okay, I'm going to share a quick story. My story is that, last week, we're in wrestling season right now. And there was a student came in, he was super angry about a lot of things. And it was the day of the meet. And so he was just talking. And we probably were together about 2 hours. And then he left, I left, he was going to go to his meet. And so I saw him the next day, Chris, and he was like, yeah, so that didn't work for me. I said, what didn't work for you? He's like, you got me all calm and I wasn't angry anymore and I didn't win my meet. So that didn't work for me. So winning for me, I don't know, winning for him, not really, but that's my
It's
story.
about the ability to turn it off and turn it on when you need to, right? Time and place.
Yes, exactly. So anyways, Chris, tell us about you.
I'm Chris Frank, assistant principal at Altona Middle School in St. Vrain Valley School District. And I am just excited because I love the opportunity just to take a few minutes out of every day to just focus on learning and slowing things down a little bit and connecting with people that you don't get to work with every day. So this is a highlight for me. And we're going to get started out with some things that are really up the middle school alley. And we have a bit of a funny that we're going to do each session. And last time we talked about toys that weren't toys. Today we're going to talk about quotes, and these are the most quotable quotes that were heard in middle schools in the state of Colorado as of late. So we're going to go ahead and pull those up, and hopefully you guys will get a kick out of these.
Chris, can you enable screen sharing for me or Diane?
Oh yeah, that would be good. You need the power.
How about now? All right. So this is our Middle School Mondays quotable quotes, first edition, but not the last. All right. I don't know the history on this one, but don't poke me and don't sniff me. I can imagine maybe this was establishing some ground rules about what the rules needed to be in an intervention. Just 2 rules. Don't poke me, don't sniff me.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't in charge of this one, Chris, and it was there was 2 6th graders, they weren't getting along, and that's just their agreements that they came with. It's like, I need you not to poke me or sniff me, and I wrote it down in our little book that we have when we need a little chuckle. Mm-hmm.
Everything else is fair game.
Exactly, it's all good. Okay, this one, it's not totally funny, but I loved it. This 8th grader, we had asked about like, what is something that you want the adults to know in the building, and he was like, you should remember my name. I was like, all right, okay.
Do that.
I know, right?
Okay, this one's funny. So we all know that students had different levels of efficacy with their masks, and this kid sneezed with his mask on and immediately after said, oh man, I just crapped my mask. Good news is we had extra in the office for them that day.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my all the mask stuff. Okay, this is a good one. Valentine's Day, which I need more quotes from Valentine's Day. This one, Hans principle, 3 chocolate hearts. Here you go, Miss Heiser, for your troubles.
The sweetness.
I know, right? So sweet. I love it.
This was from a math class. The teacher's talking about what's 1/3 of a foot, and without missing a blink, kid says 2 toes. Now, that's not quite completely accurate. If you do the math and the fractions, it's not quite there, but close.
I love that. That's a great one. Okay. So teacher says this, you can go outside for 10 minutes, but just don't roll around in the snow. 8th grade boy rolls eyes. I'm not going to roll around in the snow. I'm not a panda.
What do you think I am?
To which I was like, pandas aren't in snow, right? Like, I'm just having to verify this, right? I did look it up.
They are in snow, just so you know, Megan. There's snow in the land of the pandas. But yep, there you go.
So it's like a true statement. See, now I'm curious. I want to talk to this kid. Thanks, Diane. All right.
This one was I'm lazy, but it's complicated. I'm lazy, I'm just very complicated. It's complex.
Same.
I believe it is.
Same.
Turns out it is.
Right. Yes. Bruh. Every single middle schooler ever. Oh my God, including my own kid. I feel like I lost my name, Mom. It's bruh now.
Replaced with.
Exactly. I know. All right. I think those are ours. So this is something too. If anyone has awesome quotes, send them our way. But now we're going to flip to our Middle School Monday teacher hacks. And these are awesome. I love it because what we did is we reached out to all of Colorado and we just asked, like, what are some of the things that you're doing that are just saving you time, saving your emotions? And we really wanted to compile these as things that you could even implement tomorrow if you wanted to. So we're going to keep asking for this. And I just think it's really important for everyone to remember that I think a lot of times, I don't know, as teachers, educators, you don't think that what you're doing is that special, but it really is. And I think especially when we're like, I don't know, we're used to our own routines and whatnot, we kind of forget what other things that we could be doing, or like we forget that it's really cool and it's really special. So we're going to be really reaching out again and being like, share us your teacher hacks. So we got 3 of them today to share with you. All right, so let's look at our first one. So this first one is called What's That? And this one comes from Caitlin O'Donnell at Longs Peak Middle School. And I'm just going to read what she said about her little hack. I call it What's That? And it just so happens that I have a hard time hearing students sometimes. Like when they say, this sucks, or this is boring, or I want to go home. I have a hard time hearing them. So I repeat back to them, what's that? You are so lucky to be here with your favorite teacher. Or what's that? You love getting a world-class education in this room. You middle schoolers are so sweet. She said that it helps break the tension with humor. It diffuses her own frustration, and it just helps reframe the words for a minute.
I love that. I think that's always think about momentum in a classroom, and it's almost like a sporting event, right? You've got great momentum going in a classroom and it can get off task quickly. But so I love that little reframe of just about, we're going to have some positive vibes and we're going to, make it go in a good direction in this room. So good. Nice job, Caitlin.
I know, so cool. All right, our next one. Wait for it.
It's coming. And our next hack is called Wall of Fame. So I'll introduce it. Wall of Fame is a hack that basically is really just about sharing and celebrating the things that you see doing in your classroom and just kind of recognizing the little moments. So Josh Walker, and we'll get the image pulled up here in a second, but Josh Walker, a teacher at Trail Ridge Middle School, has a bulletin board in his classroom. And it is like trying to just capture the little awesome moments. And as a middle school teacher, you know that there are so many unpredictable, awesome moments that you're always trying to capture. And so what he does is he's created a spot to really just do that, to capture these fantastic moments. And some of them are going to be big, like student data or doing a really nice job on a project. But other times it might be just partnership, some things that students are doing that you really just want to celebrate and capture and as a part of things that you'd like to see more in your classroom. So what this teacher said is that he started doing this to encourage random acts of kindness. It began with students picking up trash, helping each other through hard times. And whenever he caught a student really just going above and beyond, he added them to the wall. And academically after each unit. He would use this as a reward to highlight students who gave their best effort, almost like an MVP award for maybe that unit or that period of learning. And it's just really, provides students something to strive for. And it sounds like no matter how small that is, it's just an opportunity to build classroom climate and culture.
I love this too, because I think, sometimes it's really easy when it's those hard weeks, it's really easy to focus on all the things that kids aren't doing well, right? Like talking or not doing the homework or being really rude or something, right? And it's like this idea of like what you focus on gets bigger. So if he's constantly looking out for like the good that's happening, he's going to see the good, which is so cool. I love that. Okay, our third one is the Schoology banner. So this one comes from Karen Swanson. She's at Timberview Middle School. And so what she does is she uses the banner and the announcement part in Schoology to provide students and parents and admin just information about what the standard is, the learning target, and the student success criteria for each unit. So it's colorful. They put it on top of the folders and then just change it as the unit changes it. So so it's just a really it's a cool idea. And what I love is that it just puts that out there for everyone. So there's no surprises. Like we all know what we're going to be learning, and parents included. That's really neat. All right. So so those are the hacks, and those are the things that we're talking about. So we'll actually, Heiser, can you put that back on? So we have in here a QR code that you can scan and get you to the form if there's other hacks that you want to share. Plus, if you follow us on Twitter, you can do it that way. And once we get, it's just being tricky. But Diane, maybe you could put it in the chat too, so that if anybody wants to follow that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So so those are our hacks.
All right. So the other thing that we do as a part of this is really try and connect with a guest, somebody that we'd like to all learn a little bit more from. So you see the QR code here. So that's where you go if you would like to submit some more hacks, little things like we just shared, please do that. But next, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce our guest, Danny Hernandez. Danny will unpack strategies that he has perfected to ignite student curiosity, embrace chaos, and free himself from teacher control while creating self-directed students engaged in project and passion-based learning. Danny's going to highlight his most recent project about building carnival games from scratch using recycled goods from a feeder elementary school. Danny is acknowledged as an incredible middle school VEX robotics coach. In fact, I think he's in the robotics room with the teams today. His students have been known to beat high school teams. We are super fortunate to have Danny join us as our special guest today. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off to Danny to tell us a little bit about the ways that he uses design and embraces what can be seen as student chaos to further student learning.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'm Danny Hernandez, and I am the robotics and computer science teacher at Westview Middle School. And as he had mentioned with the robotics room, I'm actually in the neighboring classroom because we have 7 of our teams and 2 of the high school teams from Longmont High, and they're scrimmaging, getting ready for the state tournament this weekend. So that's a pretty big deal for us. And so the reason I'm here, though, is to talk about the carnival class that we have put together. So this class started a few years ago when we would go to the Central Elementary Carnival. And as parents, we're watching our kids, they're playing the games, we'd volunteer and help out. And I ended up actually getting in trouble with the guy who runs the carnival because the game that I was running was a 2x4 with 4 buckets. And the bottom of the bucket had the 3M self-sticking Velcro. And they had those softball size wiffle balls, and you had to throw them into the buckets. The problem was the buckets never stayed on. So every time a kid would come up, they'd throw it and the bucket would just fall off. So the ball never actually stayed in the bucket. And I was going to run home and grab my drill to screw everything down and fix the game when I was told I could not do that. And And so then I turned the rules and changed it to where if the kids just knocked down any buckets, they got to win a prize. You got preschoolers playing these games. And, the poor kids are never getting to win anything because none of the buckets stayed on. And so that's when I ended up getting in trouble with the carnival guy because he said I could not change the rules. And I said, well, your game's not very good. So, so then we just, as parents were talking, I went around and looked at all the games and we were looking at, then it became, okay, how much are we paying this company to come in? And I learned that the PTO was actually losing money on the carnival. And they were just doing it because it's fun for the kids. And so we got together, a couple of friends of mine, and we basically figured out how do we do this ourselves? How do we create this? How do we make the games? How do we keep the money within our system so that it's supporting our own students? And it's grown into this class. And so I have students that are coming from the different elementary schools. Right before everything happened with COVID, we were lined up to run the Central Elementary Carnival, Fall River, and Alpine. And we were going to take our games that we had built from student alumni from those schools and go back and run the carnivals. And it has grown to where it's kind of become, we started looking at the green aspect of it. We took some games to Longmont Estates to test them out during their fall festival. And great feedback from the students, great feedback from the parents. And at the time, we looked at, okay, well, how does the prize work? Because that was one of our biggest things, is how do we do prizes? And because the company from Denver provides everything. So we're looking at it, and Longmont Estates has their whole prize room from everything they ordered, I think from Oriental Trading Company. And as a parent, I'm looking at this list, I'm looking at all these prizes, and my kids see fun new little toys. I see a bunch of junk that's going to break, and then we're going to throw it away.
Yeah.
And in a different section of their school was where they were actually donating and raising money. Families were donating used toys, some new, in the box, never open, and the kids could come in and give a quarter and get a new Hot Wheel car. And so that was their big fundraiser. And immediately I looked at that, I took some photos, I brought it back, I showed my students, and we talked about it. And some of the kids even said, well, that's just recycling toys. So now we don't have to buy any toys. We could reach out to the community. And I had presented that to Central Elementary, saying, you reach out to your community, everybody has toys they can donate. Whether it's new Hot Wheels, the one at Longmont Estates even had brand new Nerf guns in the box, never opened, just cleaning out closets, cleaning out whatever. And we looked at that, and like, my child would gladly donate 15 Hot Wheels so he can get 15 new Hot Wheels.
Mhm.
And that's now your prize table. So at that point, it's like, okay, we've now solved the problem of prizes and spending money on just more stuff. And then this year we added in, I have now sent out a letter. We're getting lumber donated, we're getting paint donated, we're getting hinges donated, we're getting parts for all the games donated. So now we're not having to, and it's all used lumber. Some of it is 2x4s that have come off of a shed, or I know my brother, and now I'm in contact with 2 other contractors that are getting me plywood and 2x4s that are just left over from housing projects. They are just throwing them in the dumpster and it's going to the landfill. And so they're saving boards and things like that we can put to use. So that has eliminated our costs from making Home Depot runs. And so that it's turning and evolving into, how do we take this and not spend any money? And then we can go to the PTOs, we can go to the elementary schools, we can charge a minimal amount just to help cover any expenses, or if I need to provide students. And then the funding can be turned around and used for class materials. It can be turned around and used for robotics teams, getting kids to worlds, whatever we need to do. And then it's a win-win for us. It's a win-win for the PTOs. They're not losing money on putting on the carnivals. The kids are learning. And when we look at that aspect of it, I was one of those kids sitting in a class all day wondering, why do I care? Why do I need to know this? And the number one thing I love about this class is we get to apply so many things they're learning in other rooms. And we get to apply especially with the critical thinking, and they're having to design and create something and do a little bit of research on it, but now they are having to figure it out. And the big one is when it comes to math and measurements. They're building everything out of cardboard first, but then when we want to transfer it to wood, well, we can't recut the wood and we can't just glue things back together. So all the measurements have to be accurate. Some of the students are using Tinkercad. They're using drawing apps to go through and sketch everything out and scale everything. We then scale it up. And the other thing I really love about it is it doesn't matter who's good at math. It doesn't matter who's good at reading. It doesn't matter who the star language arts students. It's something everybody can do. They can all draw. They can all cut cardboard. Everybody can use glue sticks, and we design and build things.
Danny, what grade levels get to take this class?
It's 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
Walk us through what maybe an average day is, probably a funny concept with all of that stuff going on, but walk us through a little bit about how you set kids up for that. How do they kind of go through that design process, and what does a normal day look like there?
Well, so it takes us a few weeks to get into actually building. The beginning of is just showing them the carnivals. We do a little research. We look up carnival games. Each student has to come up with their own idea. And, how do you play the game? What does it look like? They have slides they have to put together. And then we'll spend a couple of days and they have to present to their peers. I put them in groups of 4 and 5 students, and each one of them gets a chance to present and then get feedback on their game. And then after that, we go from there to, okay, who do you want to work with? Do you want to put together? I let them put together their own groups. And so it could be anywhere from working by yourself to a maximum of 4 in a group. And then at that point, what are you going to make? So if it's a group of 4, some of them will decide on one of their games. Some of them will pick a game from another group that they decided not to work on, but they liked that game better, so they want to work on that. And then we get into now we're just going to quickly prototype. I have a connection at one of the local bike shops down on Main Street, so the Longmont Bike Company. Chris down there saves me from the bike boxes. They cut out the sheets, the sides of the boxes, and then I go down and he's got everything stacked and ready for me, so I can just go down and load the van, bring all the cardboard back. So now we basically have a lot of miniature plywood sheets out of cardboard. Kids get to build everything. And that's when it becomes pretty much controlled chaos in my room. We're starting to use the clamps. We're using the saws. Now that we're into wood, we're using drills. Anything that needs to be cut on a small scale, I'll have the students cut on their own. I teach them how to clamp everything, how to mark everything. And then anything that needs to be bigger cuts, I'll do on during my plan times. But it's definitely, it's not the normal classroom. It is very, very busy, and students everywhere. And they do an amazing job. When we have 5 minutes left and they leave, it looks on most days like there was only 3 kids in the room.
That's impressive.
Seriously, I need that for my house. How do you teach that?
It's not easy.
What I liked about what you said was I heard 2 words keep kind of coming up was community, right? That this started off trying to solve a community problem, which I think is phenomenal. And you talked a lot, just students. You kept saying students, students, students. And so it sounds like that's been a really student kind of led project, and that you kind of have to let students kind of go and give up a little bit to kind of get the product. Yeah,
I try to put myself in a situation where I am just the guy with the stuff. You are in control of what you're learning. I'm following your lead. What do you need to know? A lot of my teaching is on a need to know basis. And I learned that early on with robotics. My first year, when in the curriculum, they wanted to teach about gear ratios, but we hadn't touched, all the kids wanted to do was build a robot. And it's like, I want to build the robot. And 3 weeks in, we're still not building robots. And then they don't care about it. It's back to the whole, why do I care? I don't care about the gear ratios. And so a lot of what I try to do is I watch for those moments where a student is struggling and now they need to know something. So now they will care and now they will listen.
That's really cool. So what do you like, what is, when they're like, if you have students that are asking you like, how do you, what should I do? What should I, how do I need to do this? Do you have like a line that you always use or a couple lines that you'll use to just give it back to them?
A lot of times it's, well, what's the problem? And, and they'll start talking through the problem. That's my biggest one, because most times while students are talking through their problem, they then walk away because they're like, never mind, I figured it out. And instead of me just jumping in and saying, why don't you do this, this, and this? And that's how I learn. If you're going to tell me for 5 minutes how to do something, I listen to the last 15 seconds of what you said. If you let me do it and then let me struggle, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to learn it. And when I get stuck, I'll ask for help. And then there's a mix. And then there's also the mix of students who need that guidance, who need, I don't know what the next step is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you were somebody, Danny, who was either looking to solve a community problem, because it sounds like this class kind of originated just from a community issue that was trying to be solved. So if you were somebody who either wanted to get students into this level of design and building, or somebody had encountered a community problem and wanted to go about empowering students to kind of go about solving it and involving them, where would you guide them? Where should they start?
One of the things with this, I think you have to be okay with not being in control. You have to be okay with not being the person in the front of the room who's just going to talk at the students and make them write stuff down. You've got to be okay with letting the kids take over, and where is a problem? What problems are out there? What do we need? What are we trying to fix? And I mean, there's no curriculum for what I'm doing. There's no book that says, here's how you do it. It's a lot of it's through conversation with the kids. A lot of it's through conversation with people in the community, through coworkers, and trying to figure out how can we change things. It's for me, it's always been inherent. I was the kid who was doing logic puzzles all the time. It was just trying to always figure out how to solve a problem.
Well, I like how you talked about the relevance too. I mean, nobody will tell you how relevant or irrelevant something is like a middle school student, right? And so by giving them that opportunity to really understand what they're doing is it's almost client based, right? You're trying to solve something that is a client based thing, and there's automatic relevance because we're not just building something for a cool project, we're building it for our community and maybe their previous school. I think that's so authentic.
Well, and I didn't get a chance to show you some of the projects too. But going back to the process, I mean, here's a simple game of we're going to throw a UFO that has to land on the landing pad. And part of the process is going through and collecting data. And then once that student's been approved and the data has been collected, we turn it into the real game. And so this game here is ready to go. It could be at a carnival tomorrow. And it's just a Frisbee throwing game onto the UFO landing spots. This one is a game from several years ago, another UFO style game, but it's just the Frisbee toss. You're trying to throw a Frisbee through the slots. And then we add electronics. So all of these white dots are LED lights that flicker. And the goal was to flicker as the UFOs are going through and running into the game. And then here's a project of, here's the cardboard prototype that they put together. And now we're transferring it over to wood and making the real game. It's a Plinko golf game. So a mix of the two. The other thing we do is every year, all of our schools that are doing robotics, we're left over with robotic parts everywhere. So rather than just throwing them away, that's another thing, is how do we use those parts? These pipes here for this just ping pong bounce game, these are pipes that I've had sitting in a closet for 6 years. And instead of throwing them away, the kids figured out, well, we can make a ball game where you bounce a ping pong ball into 3 different size holes. These towers are from Tower Takeover a few years ago. And now we have a game with 3 different size towers, and we throw bean bags and you get different points depending on which tower you go into. This is a mini golf, a Sphero mini golf, and we're using with an actual working windmill made from old robotic parts from the legacy system that's no longer used in competition. So now we have all these extra motors that are just sitting around, and the kids are figuring out how they can use them.
That looks like so much fun.
I know. I wanna
And
do
so it's a lot of it is here are all of these plastic parts that we're just going to put in a landfill. What can we do with them?
And that's a real world problem that, that kids can, make a career out of too. I mean, there's people all over the world trying to solve that very issue. So I love that.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's, like I was saying earlier, this is a robotics room. The week before a state tournament, we've got 8 teams, 9 teams over here scrimmaging and getting ready.
That is so cool. Danny, thank you. And it also just makes me excited about electives, right? And just such a creative use, because I feel like, you have your traditional electives, and it's so cool to have something new like this that combines all sorts of things, from community and trash to treasure kind of stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a modern day woodshop class.
Yeah, seriously. That's great. Well, thank you, Danny. And I'll see you at state.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Well, already that time, which is crazy. So thank you, everyone. Viewers, people who watch later. And just remember, any of your funny things that you want to share, or if you want to share those teacher hacks with us, Diane put up on the link, but it will also be on our Twitter. And just a reminder, our Twitter is @Camel, CAMLEMS Mondays. So that's a great way to share your hacks. And then that way we can highlight you and all the cool things that you're doing. Because the reality is I think some people are well, I got it from Pinterest, but we want to hear from people in Colorado that are just doing it, because that stuff is really awesome. And sometimes when you see it on Pinterest, you don't really think will this really work? So we want to hear from you.
And our best resources are certainly the people that are next door, and our technology allows us to get a window into the next door across the state. So join us next time, March 28th at 3:45. We'll see you then.